Hey everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to the Local Marketing Institute Q&A Live. Today with our special guest, Ted Chan from the Better Business Bureau. All right, as usual, you can reach me at Ben Fisher, steadydemand.com, at The Social Dude on Twitter. Of course, my fabulous co-host, Greg Gifford, Search Lab Digital, and at Greg Gifford. And today, we again are honored to have Ted Chan with us. He is from the Better Business Bureau. At Upward Mobility is how you can get in touch with him. And absolutely, Ted. And as all usual, just please go ahead and join us on Facebook at the Local Marketing Institute Connect, where we have 2.3 thousand following. Actually, at this time, I think. No, but 2.2 is great. There you can reach
over 2.2. It says over 2,200, so it's still okay.
Over 2,200. All right, fine. That's good. So where you can see me, Greg, and all the other product experts. And, if you have any questions, just come in and ask. And finally, get us on the go. Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's excellent. It's awesome. Local Marketing Institute podcast. You want us in your ear. I had to throw that in there, Greg. Oh, man.
Now it's time to start with the news.
Yeah, so like in the last 2 weeks, there's things that happened in the SEO world, the overall SEO world, like the core update, which just came out, but other than that, not much going in the local space. The only thing that really happened is just in the last couple of days, actually, literally everybody was seeing that their Google Business Profile would be published in the Google Business Profile Manager. But as soon as you went and gone and looked at your profile on search, in the in-search experience, it said it's not visible, although you still had the menu items. This was just a bug, but it was global. It did affect everybody. So as soon as we saw it, took it to Google, said, hey, this is a real problem, and they fixed it. So go Google. With that, so today we want to talk a little bit about trust. We want to talk about the Better Business Bureau, the kind of a news piece, actually, of what happened on one of the contact forums, which is kind of why we're here today. And then we want to really just talk about the BBB in general, like the vetting process and what the relationship actually is with Google, kind of get rid of some of the myths that are out there and hear it from the horse's mouth. So, Ted, welcome to the show. This is
Actually, let's all edition. Welcome Ted.
Yes. Oh, before we get started, I'm sorry. I apologize, Ted. Everybody in the audience, hello, fabulous people. Please do us a favor. If you have any kind of questions for Ted or for us or anything like that, please do them in the Q&A section. Of course, if you have any other things that you'd like to say, do that in chat. But Q&A is really where it's at, and that's what we're going to need actually in the last 30 minutes of the show. So fill it up with questions. All right, with that, Ted, hey, how are you doing? Please tell us what you do before you got involved with the BBB, and how did you get involved with the BBB?
Great, yeah. So happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. So I'm Ted Chan. I'm the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer for the International Association of Better Business Bureaus. Let's say, it's more like having 94 parents than 94 kids type setup. So we have 94 local offices, and at the International Association, we run bbb.org, which is most used directories in the US and Canada. But before that, I was an old school SEO. So I think if I look back, I think I've been following Ben and Greg on Twitter for, 10, 11 years. So I built, Upward Mobility is a holding company of educational properties, the biggest of which is practicequiz.com. It's a purely SEO business that was built out. So I'm maybe a little out of practice, but I can hang with the jargon sometimes.
Nice.
These actually, you guys aren't freaking out about the core update, but I am a little bit. So,
Nah, not yet. No, you can't freak out for at least a couple weeks.
yeah,
That's how I always look at it.
I just want my Search Console data to come in. I see last update 36 hours or something. And then I built another directory in the healthcare space, and also a series of niche directories. Those are fun. Ben's done a bunch of those. That kind of so all of my what I try to do in all my work is double bottom line. So social good with strong business principles, and that's kind of what led me to the BBB, the knowledge in depth of especially the data and the strategy side of building directories, combined with my desire, to be on the side of good.
Mhm.
Which I don't know. We'll talk about it, but the BBB is an evolving organization, but I think as a nonprofit, kind of for me squarely on the good side.
Very cool. Right on. And okay, so cool. So I guess the next question that I really have is, what is the overall arching role of the Better Business Bureau?
Yeah, so I think some of the context and history helps, right? So the BBB's organization that's over 100 years old, right? And its roots are really grassroots in the community, right? Which is why and I think at one point we had 220 local chapters. That's now 94. But it was, hey, there's an organization, that takes calls and keeps a file on businesses, and you can you can call in to praise the business, but you can also more than more than praise, typically complain about a business that didn't do the job for you, for whatever reason, and may or may not be trustworthy. So the BBB would keep a file of those, and people would call in and say, hey, I'm going to hire a carpenter to fix something in my house, and somebody would go to a file cabinet, pull out the file, and hey, is this business trustworthy? And I think over time with the evolution, I think actually when the BBB started, you had to basically walk in to do that, not everybody had a telephone.
Yeah.
Not everybody had a telephone, and then with the shift to the web, that's I think still the culture and concept that we're trying to keep, there's great things to know about the business, and there's challenges associated with the business that should be shared. I think the part all alongside that, is the accreditation process. So the BBB, we're known, we've got ratings, the A+ through the F, which we could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the accreditation process, which we could talk about, but briefly, that is a fee that businesses pay to the Better Business Bureau to do a substantial number of checks on the business, monitor the business, and we can talk more about what.
Yeah, I mean, let's actually dig into that a little bit. I mean, what I was looking for with the role of the BBB, and I mean, you've done a wonderful job explaining a lot about the BBB, but what is the role, I guess, in other areas, beyond Google and such? What is the guiding principles in the BBB, which you've kind of gone over as well, but how do others view the BBB? What's their role in the entire business ecosystem? Is it more just that trust, knowing that this is a business you can trust?
Yeah, so I mean, the BBB's mission is to support trust in the marketplace, right? So we want consumers to be able to trust businesses and businesses to be able to trust consumers, right? As a nonprofit, right? You say, hey, you pay the BBB, right, or you pay the accreditation fee, right? I mean, I being at the BBB, right, I know, right, and you see us in the media a lot working on it, but the dollars, right, that the business spends, right, go into the accreditation process, and it goes into the staff and the efforts to get things that we think are important about protecting the marketplace into the community, right? So that is the scam alerts that we do, right? The scam studies, the analysis of industries, the work that we do with local agencies, local governments, national governments, and sometimes international, right, and law enforcement. Right, I mean, almost everybody at the BB would tell you, oh, it could be making a lot more money somewhere else. And I think that's a place where just a little bit misunderstood, right? But so that's and that was the original kind of organic story, right? That the dues that businesses pay are out there to, they go back into the community to create this ecosystem, right? So we're trying to keep
that's kind of neat.
We're trying to keep consumers from, if you're buying from unethical businesses, that hurts ethical businesses, right?
Right, exactly.
If you're getting scammed, right, those are dollars that would have been spent within the business community, the local community, that are, right, going to who knows where. So that's the core principle, and I'd say, like, cool. I think we've done not a great job explaining that to the community, right? Because it's local marketers, they're 50-50 whether they understand that sometimes.
Yeah,
that's on us.
But let's talk about the next piece, which I think is what people really want to understand. Okay. From what I've seen and what I've heard about the BBB ecosystem, right? And I could be completely wrong about this. So you pay your $500, whatever it is, right? And BBB does some sort of vetting process, which takes approximately 10 days. And then you're accredited pretty much if you've gone through, I guess, whatever these checks are, which we're going to talk about. And I've even heard, though, in some markets, it'll happen in 24 hours, which to me sounds like you're just buying the accreditation. Talk about that, towards the end, because I think that's a question that people have is, can I just give you $500 and get verified? Right. Because that's what I think a lot of scammers would love to do.
Well, let me answer that. I can answer that question. You better not be able to, right? And if you run into instances of that, I want to hear about it, because the international association's job is to make sure that's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that depending on the state, some states have gotten to where it's not as difficult to get the information that we need to do the accreditation process, right? So the key things we look for, right? You got to have been in business for 6 months. You have to have all the required licensing and bonding, right? So if you're a contractor, a certain type, electrician, right? Some states are going to require a license, and some actually don't, right? You're going to have to be bonded at a certain level, right? If you're a mover, you're bonding at a certain level, for instance. You can't have any unresolved customer complaints with us, right? So it's a commitment to be responsive to issues that come up in the marketplace, which many companies are not willing to do. We check on government, right? State, local, federal sanctions. And then we do checks on the advertising and what's on, what's let's say discoverable publicly or on the website, right? So there's certain claims that we run into this in the accreditation process all the time, right? Especially local marketing agencies, right? Write copy with claims that can't be verified. Right? The accreditation specialist is supposed to catch those and let the business know, and
is there a lot of back and forth with the business? So let's say I am a locksmith, and I'm using, and I'm going to talk about local stuff here for locations, but and I'm using some kind of a WeWork address, right? And it's showing my address, and I'm a sole proprietor. I'm not licensed, or at least I'm in New York, where you can't really look up a business license very easily, right? And I tell you, it's like, yeah, Ted, I've got like 15 locations all over New York. And I service all those areas, and yeah, I do it all myself, but I do service all those areas. What happens to me now? I mean, can I get 15 accreditations?
Well, so I think the answer to that is going to depend on the job, right? And this is the way the BBB works, right? Is there's a person, right? Okay. It's an accreditation specialist, and they have been trained to ask questions about the nature of that business and try to categorize it specifically, right? Okay. So, one of the things personally I wrestle with, right, having come years ago, right, is look, there are it's not illegal to be a lead gen company, right? But we want to try to let the consumer know as much as possible, right? This is right. That's what it is, as opposed to, right.
So this is not the company which will be serving you.
15 locksmiths, right? That are, yeah. And I'll say, right, like accreditation specialists, I think do a good job of seeing that, right, and trying to understand that's the nature of the business. Do we always do a perfect job communicating it or flowing it through? I don't. It's a people process.
Right on. Cool. Okay. I mean, I definitely like to learn more about the vetting process. I mean, that's a fantastic amount of information right there. Yeah. I mean, it really is. But Greg, do you have any questions so far, buddy?
No. I mean, like, this is great stuff. Great stuff. I feel like we asked him here because of the GBP thing, but we're getting other gold besides that. So it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I figured this would be a great opportunity because nobody really talks about, everybody says, oh yeah, you need to get BBB accredited, but why? Yeah. I don't think I've heard any marketers really talk about it, and then there's been, sorry, Ted, to go off on a tangent here, but then you've got things like, for instance,
actually, if you run an agency, getting escalated GBP support's a pretty good reason.
Yeah, right.
In my experience dealing with GBP.
Exactly. But there's been SEOs out there that have said, oh, getting a link from the BBB is going to help your organic SEO. Sorry, that's actually not true. But there's all sorts of myths and confusion, and I just don't think anybody has done an interview with the BBB. I haven't seen one done in a long time. So this is cool, man. Thanks for coming, Ted.
No, hey, anytime.
All right, cool. So let's get into that. Let's get into that, Greg. So basically what ended up happening here was, this was like not even I think a week ago, maybe something like that. Basically Stefan Saborak and myself, we noticed that, the BBB, Google was asking for a BBB link during the verification help process. So if you're reaching out and trying to get help, it's saying, hey, do you have a BBB link? And it's like, what? Now, internally, from what I know, is that Google does trust, of course, the BBB link, right? Google Local, GBP. And so they see it as a form of trust, right? When like you're getting reinstated or whatnot. But it's kind of interesting that it just kind of popped up all of a sudden. And, I think what I'd love to talk about here is why do you think, Ted? I mean, you have obviously knowledge because you're working the relationship with Google, right? So why would Google do this now? And actually, they're showing their hand here, by the way, too, right? Which is something they don't normally do. And what is the BBB's relationship with Google, I guess?
Greg, you look like you had something.
No. I'm like, yes. This is awesome. Sorry.
Okay.
Sometimes I forget I'm on video,
Well, so look, when I feel like, especially in the SEO world, right? When we talk about Google, there's this, like John Miller, right? There's this like encoded dance language that we do where we're trying to pick up on the hints and follow the breadcrumbs and try to understand what's going on. So, right, and I'm the person at the BBB that speaks directly with Google, and I'm not really saying anything. I think
you got to balance your NDA.
Would surprise Google, right? I mean, look, Google. I think Google has access to most of the data that the BBB has. So I do think it's about trust, right? And I think there's elements that come from what the BBB has done and stood for since 1912, and then I think there's the element of our data, and our data I'd say is a quirky set of data in the directory world, and I'm pretty close, very detailed, and know a lot of people at a lot of the other large directories, and I think like I see there's local marketers here, so I think to everybody's kind of chagrin, you'll know that, right? We haven't accepted like Yext and Uberall, for instance, right? And that's because each of our bureaus has a data person that vets new business listings being created. Is that a good idea? Is that clinically insane in 2023? It's completely insane, right? And one of the first things it did, right, is right, you may have seen this, right, but the BBB is now accepting data from Yext and Uberall, but it's trickling in slowly.
Oh my goodness. No, I did not know that.
So that was like, because I think that improves the quality of the user experience, it reduces the workload, and, Google holds those organizations to such high standards. Is with manual processes, you get things that are good, you get things that are bad, but it's harder it's historically been harder to get a listing on bbb.org than other directories. I think what Google is trying to do is they look at support as a cost center, right? And especially and they look at dealing with spam as a cost center. And if you look at how much if you look at how much kind of GMB spam they're dealing with, right? They're looking for ways to filter which requests come from real businesses and which ones don't.
Would you think that Google uses the BBB accreditation information, or just the BBB information in general, to acknowledge what's considered the existence of a business?
I think it goes back to trust, right? I think there's a degree of trust in our data, right? And you talk to folks at Google, they're extremely data driven. Right?
Oh, sure.
So before they would even add that field, right, to the form, they've done some massive scale of testing, right? So I'll stop there.
You can keep going. We're happy.
I think I kind of the big thing that I started to worry about, right, is that there's going to be a flood of, right, not great listings trying to get listed on BBB.
Exactly.
Right. So, we have a missive across the organization to keep an eye out for it, right? Since it is manual, but some of these folks can be pretty sneaky. And
You got that right. Very sneaky. And that's my curiosity, right? Is like whenever I hear about something like this, it's like I immediately lean towards, okay, so how are the scammers going to leverage this basically to increase their business? Because that's what they do for the most part, when they're creating these, fake lead gen or even just fake profiles in general, kind of like the locksmith story, trying to get as many Google business profiles as possible. And he's like, oh, well, if I go spend, $10,000 with the BBB, I'm good. I can get my 20 locations now, no problem. And I think that is at least is my fear, right? Is that this is going to help enable, but if it's been there all along and we haven't seen that all along, will it really get bad? That's a big question. And I think the fact that you have, like you said, you've got people who are actually vetting these companies, that probably lessens the chance of something like that happening.
Yeah. And I think, with companies that don't behave ethically, their business results may not end up right. We'll see, we'll see complaints or negative reviews, and I like to think we're tougher on some of that, right? I mean, we pretty good data scientist who works on that. But yeah, again, there's nothing inherently illegal, right, about being lead gen shop. It's just that we want to try to understand that, you're going to be referred to a local locksmith, that's actually going to do the work.
I mean, do you see complaints from people who say, well, I got in contact with a locksmith, however, Z locksmith showed up and ripped me off?
I think it's an important, it's an important question that I haven't run the specific numbers on, right? I mean, I do think some of the biggest problems that we have and some of the businesses that we've been a part of escalating to local authorities, it's have been aggregators, right? And I would say they over-index towards having problems, and they have problems with problems with the consumers, but a lot of their problems are with the local businesses. So we've seen a number of escalations on lead gen players getting to going to the FTC. And so, the BBB is sometimes canary in the coal mine on that, right? We see, a lot of those complaints coming in from consumers and businesses, because they struggle to assure the work, and they're often legging the lead, right? They're selling the lead to 4 or 5 different.
Right.
So
interesting. Cool. Right on. I don't know, Greg, what do you want to do? You want to just jump into some of the Q&A, which is regarding the BBB, or you want to go into our questions?
I kind of feel like, I mean, the thing is, though, I was looking, and almost every single, actually the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions are asked by people that are here today, which we've been having some issues with lately. So that would be cool. But I still think we should jump to the BBB questions first and then jump back to those.
I agree. Okay, cool.
So let's do Mark's question first. So Mark asked, if there's time, can you basically describe the customer complaint resolution process?
Yeah. It's actually funny because I went to my daughter's 6, she's 6, so she's in 1st grade. They are doing review writing as a writing unit in class. So I actually went this morning, and I was explaining the complaint resolution process in terms of, actually before I joined the BBB, they ordered a unicorn zip pillow, right? That's also a sleeping bag. And the company didn't ship it for 3 months. And then when they shipped it, the zipper was broken. And then so my wife complained to the BBB, and the BBB emailed them, called them, emailed them, called them, right? Threatened them a little bit, right? I actually probably not allowed to say it, but it's, they, it's going to go on your profile as an unresolved complaint, and it's going to hurt your letter grade. And then they resolved it and finally sent it, and actually sent the unicorn pillow and gave a full refund. And that was well, hey, wow, this process really works. So I think there's that, right? And that's probably a more straightforward case, right? The company knew that they weren't doing the right thing, or hadn't delivered the service. It's often more gray, right? So you get a response from the company, and the company will explain, why they felt that they met, right, what the transactional terms were. And this is something the BBB typically can't do a lot about, right? So this is where we're trying to get in front of that, right? A lot of the work we do is, especially like seasonal, right? You want to hire an ethical mover, but you want to look out for you in the contract, look out for the fees and negotiate, right? A lot of people just sign, right? So if the mover has a contract, right, and they've upheld the terms of the contract, and then the rest, there's additional cost that's in the contract, well, that's not a great user experience, right? But the BBB would struggle, right, to have that case upheld for you in arbitration. Now, it will get, in some cases do go to arbitration, right? Because there's ambiguity in the terms or the execution of the work. And then in which case, the parties can agree to arbitration or mediation, and the BBB brings in an independent mediator, and they look at the contract, they look at the deliverables, and they figure out if there should be refund or the customer actually owes the money, right? It's and they've agreed that it's binding. So that's some of the process. There's a lot of nuance, right? I mean, cases, it's a very human process, right? And it's kind of what why the BBB has so many people, so many offices to do this type of work. And it's right. We're try to be neutral, right? We try to be neutral politically. We try to be neutral, right, in those cases between the consumer and business, and just interpret what the facts are. And you can't make everybody happy.
Well, that is extremely true. We do have a question from Michael Lofton, and he wants to know, how does the BBB actually know if a business complaint is not a hired hand from a competitor?
So there's a verification process around the complaints that I think catches most of that.
Okay.
I would defer right to the accreditation specialist, but there's a number of ways to complaints get invalidated a lot for reasons exactly like that, right? Some cases you see, right, it's like literally the address or relation, right, from the person. But when things get escalated, typically, right, a complaint specialist, handling specialist is going to be on the phone with both sides.
Right on. Cool. All right. Greg, Mark has a question, I think, here. You want to take it?
Which question are we looking at now?
All the way at the bottom.
Scroll down to that Michael one. Oh, Mark's question.
Yeah.
Wait. The one
all the way at the bottom.
With Mark's.
All the way at the bottom.
All the way at the bottom. Oh, okay. Sorry. It's Friday. For a new business, is the order of events set up the business entity, DBA, LLC, SOS, then wait 6 months to apply to the BBB, then apply for a GBP?
I'm going to defer to you guys on that one because I'm not
Okay.
the GBP expert.
I'll ask a qualifying question. So, do you have to wait 6 months to apply for accreditation after you have just started your business?
You do. So one of the things we
okay.
have, right, is right, because we need to make sure that you're a legally incorporated entity, right? I mean, even if you're a lot of our accredited businesses are sole proprietors, but even then you have you'll have a date you got your EIN and registered with the state.
Sure.
Usually a lot of our licensing. So you do have to wait six months from that date. That just gives us at least a little bit of a track record, right? If in those 6 months you're already seeing complaints or or issues, right? God forbid you get a government action in 6 months. That would be
if I'm using let's say a roofer and they just started their business, so they're not accredited, can I still file a complaint with the BBB if there's no business listing for that business?
Yes. In the file a complaint form, right, we'll ask you to search for the business you want to complain about. But if it's not listed, then we'll basically type in the information, ask you to type the information in, and it will get handled the same as a regular complaint. That's the trigger for That's unfortunately often a small business owner or new entrepreneur's first interaction, right? And in some cases, right, they've many happy customers and one unhappy one. And one case they have one customer and one unhappy customer.
Does it create a BBB listing for them automatically at that point?
I think it's pretty likely that listing will get created.
Sounds like it, yeah. So technically, let's say you have a competitor who's asleep at the wheel when it comes to digital. You could go ahead and put forth a BBB complaint. They don't even know about it because they don't check their email ever, or something. And you could smear that business's name basically with a complaint. Wonderful. I'm just saying, can that happen, do you think?
That would be highly unethical. And
well, like I said, I always look at the worst case scenario with these things. How can it be abused?
Yeah. And I won't help you with it, but I think there's a lot of ways somebody doing that could get caught. And
Good.
That would actually be, that's one of the the person being there, right? And that the person, right, or somebody in that office being there talks to the authorities,
yeah,
right, on basically monthly business basis about, right, the things they think are scams and violations of the law.
Right on. I mean, and I think that's touch back on that really quickly, is that human element. that is behind the BBB, right? That human vetting process. You know, it's not AI, it's not, you know, done by a machine or anything like that. It's actually a human that sits down and looks at these things. They look at the complaints, they look at, you know, well, you can't look at all the reviews. That's impossible, I think.
We look at, well, so well, I mean, we look at a lot of reviews. So
You do.
we, yeah, I mean, we have an algorithm, and then the algorithm, you know, it is, you know, machine learning, NLP trained, right, to identify what it thinks possibly could be a fake review, and it does a really good job, and a lot get looked at. So if there's, you know,
That actually leads right into another question that we have here from Trisha. And hey, Trisha. So is the BBB looking at complaints about fake reviews for a business? And if so, what is the BBB able to do to protect an ethical business?
looking for complaints about, well, I mean,
If you have to quantify the answer,
Well,
Trisha is in the audience.
I think rephrasing more, do you only make a note, or is anything done only if a direct complaint is lodged, or if there are general complaints out there about a business, does the BBB do anything with it?
so we again, like your local BBB, right, in the US and Canada, is not a black hole, right? So we rely on the public to tell us where to look. So we're our job, you know, it's not our job, I think, to police the internet. Trisha actually says it. Yeah, so it's tough to get. I think it's tough to get data on other sites. But what we could do, right, or typically do, is if that gets identified, the local BBB will look at it and initiate it's called an ad review process, right? So what you put out on the internet is your presence, right? Is all part of your advertising, right? Reviews on our sites, and so what we want to know, I think, is that could trigger an ad review process, right? What we don't have is the data from other sites. We don't have all the underlying, right? When I get a review on bbb.org, I have a lot of data points to go off of, right? IP addresses, email addresses, the exact time and cadence, et cetera, right? So I mean, God knows, right? It's never ending. Fighting fake reviews would be never ending.
Well, yeah, exactly. When you don't do something like akin to what Yelp does, which says these reviews may be a suspect.
Not on bbb.org. We would, we just, right now our system, we reject them, right? We don't show.
Right on.
We don't show, and partially because we have I think Yelp has AI that detects it may be a fake review, right? Where we have a person that says, this, I think this is fake.
Yeah, like, don't post this crap. No, but okay, cool. Well, I mean, Trisha has a follow-up. I know customers can file complaints with the BBB, but if the BBB finds out about unethical practices for a business but not accredited, does the BBB note it on their profile, or how's that handled?
Well, I think it goes back to it's hard for us to police the internet, so we see what we see. But if something, we have to be very careful, according to our attorneys, and we know, right, about putting anything out there like that.
Sure.
So this is where we choose to interface with law enforcement. Um, so the right, the other right, FTC, right, has a big push against fake reviews.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So they, again, yeah, yeah.
So you're saying that if somebody was if somebody was caught doing fake reviews, they could actually get in some legal trouble if they've done that and tried to abuse the BBB like that?
I would highly not advise posting posting fake reviews on BBB. I'll leave it at that. If there's I know we can seem kind of, like a legacy organization sometimes, but yeah, that it wouldn't be the place to try to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would hate for that to happen. No, I don't think anybody wants. We all hate fake reviews, right? With a passion, but it's good to hear that there's actually a very good deterrent system, in place basically at the BBB. So if somebody does try to do that, they can get in some legit trouble, which currently doesn't happen with Google. So
the FTC has really been on it. There's just almost like a monthly dialogue between the FTC and review sites on it, right? Trying to identify some of the really bad players, and really, like, all the FTC can do is hit the tip of the iceberg. But
right on. All right, Greg, we have, I think, one more BBB related question. You want to go for it?
Talk about Paul's question.
Yeah.
So Paul has a freemium listing and wants to know, do BBB listings for a service business have to be paid to have authority?
That's a good question.
The answer is there's no difference between, they're all, Ben hinted pre-show that he might know a lot about this, but all the directory links, to the chagrin of many SEOs, are no follow. That was a decision made to, just mitigate any pay for play concerns, right? Does Google crawl almost the entire BBB site, every month? We've got we get a lot of page rank and a lot of authority and crawl budget. I think I've seen lots of hints that Google trusts the BBB, right? I've seen it used to be I don't know if it's still in the manual search rater guidelines or if they still publish those, but back, used to read that, it was like a 160-page document line for line. It was like, I think I remember that was BBB accredited, well before I worked here. But no, so there's no difference between an AB and a, right.
Yeah, I think the only difference is in SAB, you don't list the address, you just list the city and state and zip.
That's you might know that.
That's what I'm saying. Is that when you do the verification, you just do it with no address, basically. I mean, I'm sure they submit a address on the application, but not on the actual listing itself.
Oh, and you mean in the accreditation? I think, well, to get accredited, almost certainly you have an address. It's much harder without one.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think on the public side, it doesn't show the actual street.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. I mean, a lot ask for it to be suppressed.
Yeah,
right? Especially small business working out of their home.
Exactly. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Greg, where would you like to go next, my friend?
We can go over to the 4 or 5 questions that we've got. I think we can bang through those pretty quickly. The first one will go to you, and it's from Katie, who is here. So thanks for showing up to hear your answer, Katie. Katie's question is about Google Takeout, and she asks, is there a way to use Google Takeout to download data from one location in an organizational account? We tried to download the data, and it downloaded all of the data from all of the accounts within our organizational account.
Yeah, unfortunately, the answer is no. So Google Takeout Google in general looks at a lot of things from the account level versus the location level. It sucks, but it's true. So, so unfortunately, the answer is no. Thanks for asking the question. No, Katie. That's awesome. I think a lot of people probably have that question. All right. Over to you now, Greg. So I want to know, how do I get my business listed on the first page of Google? And then the subject is, how do I get my business listed on the first page of Google? And the question is, how do I get my business listed on the first page of Google?
And what stinks is Amanda A asked this question, and she was here earlier, and she didn't stick around long enough to hear the answer. And Amanda, hopefully you are listening to this as the recorded podcast, and you can play it for all your friends and say, oh my gosh, these guys are answering my question, and now I'm famous. Amanda, how do you get listed on the first page of Google? You do local SEO. You got to have your Google business profile. You got to have an awesome website with great content that answers the questions your potential customers are going to be asking. You got to have links pointed to that website. You got to have awesome customer reviews. Does that seem oversimplified? Sure. But guess what? A lot of people don't do all of that stuff. So depending on what vertical you're in, it could be pretty easy, or it may take a little bit more work. But in a nutshell, that's what you do. There's a lot of different podcasts, videos, training courses out there about how to do local SEO. So if you're asking this because you're kind of new to the game, I like to point people over to Bright Locals Academy, where there's some awesome content, and there is an intro to local SEO course that's free to take that I created there. So go watch that.
But Greg,
yes,
how do I get my business listed on the first page of Google?
Well, but Ben, I have a question for you.
What's that question?
How do I get my business listed on the first page of Google?
Oh, well, I think you have to ask the question, how do I get my business listed on the first page of Google to get listed on the first page of Google?
And then you'll figure out how to get your business listed on the first page of Google.
Yeah, that's very true. Oh, have you registered? How do I get my business listed on the first page of Google.com?
I'm going to go buy it right now.
Okay.
Next question is for you, my friend. And it is from Katrina, who is still here.
Hey,
so
Katrina.
Thanks for sticking around, Katrina. Her question is about the spam redressal form. And Katrina says, when reporting a spam redressal form, does it matter which email address is used to submit? I manage multiple GBPs for several clients, and I feel like I've heard you say that you should not use the same email as your primary Google account when reporting these. Second question, actually answer that first, and then I'll ask her second question.
All right. Okay. So the answer to that question is yes. I mean, so what? Let's just put it this way: the email address, which is the manager or the owner of your GBP listing, should never be the email address that you're using to submit your redressal form. The fact of the matter is this: Google does look at a trust factor, when we keep on talking about trust today, a trust factor in your Google account. Okay. And usually those who use the redressal form also abuse and use the suggest and edit feature as well. If you make too many suggested edits, which are basically malicious in nature, and that's up to Google to decide, then you basically will go ahead and you can have a problem and you can get yourself banned, which means all your listings will get suspended too, by the way. You just won't know that you're the problem. And as Mark is pointing out, yes, I've talked about this a lot. You can always create what's called a sock puppet account. Okay. This is an account which is just used for spam fighting. It is just used for the redressal form. One thing I do want you to know, and everybody kind of needs to understand this, especially if you are reporting personal injury lawyers. Understand your activity is tracked. It doesn't matter if you're using a sock puppet or not. If you do suggest an edit and you do a redressal form on a personal injury lawyer and they subpoena Google for that fact, they will find out who you are. So use a VPN, in other words. Okay.
So the second question actually kind of ties directly into that. To best protect her Google Business Profile Manager account, when a client adds her to their listing, when the client is the primary owner, should she be listed as a manager or an owner? Obviously, she's heard all the horror stories about people having their GBPs get suspended because one bad GBP in the account, and she wants to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, the best practice is always get added as a manager and not an owner. That's your best practice.
Boom. Good
question. Okay, next one for you, my friend. Okay, this is about pre-populating the Q&A section. This is from Mark. Hey, Mark, what's up, dude? So, gentlemen, thank you both for your help over the years. God, it has been years, hasn't it?
I know, right?
Questions regarding pre-populating the Q&A section. Can I ask and answer each with my manager profile account? Also, can I use and paraphrase some of the people also ask questions in my Google Q&A? Any bonus tips?
Yes, you can ask and answer with the same account. No problems there. You do want to check periodically and make sure that when you're putting your answers in that it's actually listing as the business owner and not as your personal name. There was a bug last year where even though you were on the manager account and it should be listed as the business, it was listing as, Joe Blow, or in this case, Mark Barris. So you want to make sure that it's actually listing that's coming from the business because that's important for the customer experience there. But yeah, totally allowed to do. Can you use and paraphrase questions in the PAA section? Sure you can. Why wouldn't you? You can put any kind of question there you want. There is no limit. I've seen some profiles that have 200 plus questions listed. The important thing to remember is nobody's going to go to that FAQ page on your site and browse through 50 questions to see if the question that they have is answered on that FAQ page. That also holds true on your business profile. They're not going to read through all of them, but what they are going to do is click ask a question. And when they start to type that question in, if a similar question has been asked and answered in the past, Google will auto-complete the question and pop up the answer to that question immediately, which means it's almost more like a kind of a chat or instant message situation. That's why you want to pre-populate all of those questions and get all those answers in there.
Yep.
So bonus tips, if you've got an FAQ page on your site, get those on there. Extra bonus tip, talk to whoever's talking to clients, whether it's if it's a brick and mortar, talk to your sales team. If you're a service business, talk to your service techs that are out there. Find out what the things are that you commonly hear from actual real customers or from people that are in the store trying to decide if they want to buy or calling to see if they want to get that service, because the marketing team doesn't always hear those questions. And those are the really important questions you want to have in there.
Exactly. And our buddy, Andy, what's up, Andy? Looking forward to seeing you at Local U, man. Andy has a Q&A tip, and that is if you thumbs up a particular question 3 times, it will appear on your Google Business Profile in the SERPs. And also on top of that, if you upvote an answer twice, it'll show up as well. So take that real estate.
But the problem with that is you want to make sure it's a great question and that it's not something that's seasonal or something random. And it's not just that it's upvoted 3 times. Once you have a question there, you will always have a question there, and you can't go back to the default questions and answers. There's 32 questions here. So once you do it, it's going to be there forever. And then you really have to be diligent about monitoring it and make sure another question doesn't get upvoted in its place.
Yep, that is very true. And by the way, I will say this, and this is not me saying that Q&A is going to help you with ranking, but you know what? It's kind of interesting because we did services for the ages have not helped with ranking, and now they are. So it doesn't hurt to give the data to Google. It really doesn't. It's good for users too, right? So that's the most important thing. All right. So no, but I'm not saying that it helps with ranking because they don't. Not now.
Yeah, but there's lots of stuff that we should do that doesn't help with ranking, but it helps with conversions.
Exactly. Heck yes. I think conversions are always more important than ranking anyway, personally. All right. So that was a great question.
And that is all the time we have left.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Episode.
Lee, we will get to you next week. And Brittany, we will also get to you next week. You had some questions in there. And yeah, so thanks everybody for coming. This is another episode on the books. Ted, hey man, thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah, for sure.
This is great.
It was awesome.
Dude.
Anytime.
Yeah, this was really great. This is fantastic. And if
It
there's
wasn't
any-
just great.
Oh.
It was excellent.
Yes. So, yeah. So everybody have a wonderful freaking weekend. We will talk to you in 2 weeks. Peace out.